Coming up on the show, the government's investment of $1 billion kina to host the 2015 Pacific Games, which is expected to provide business opportunities for Papua New Guineans and produce spikes in the construction and services sectors of the economy. We'll have that story shortly, but first we take a look at the launching of the first National Working Group. As Papua New Guinea continues to develop, business activity is booming simultaneously. And so the private sector has an integral role in contributing to PNG's economy, supporting government to achieve its objectives. Prime Minister Peter O'Neill launched a new national working group last week, which will encourage public-private sector dialogue.
The O'Neill-Dion government has established a national working group to improve the business and investment climate in Papua New Guinea. Last Thursday, Prime Minister Peter O'Neill launched the national working group, chaired by Chief Secretary to Government Manasupe Zureno at the Crown Plaza Hotel in Port Moresby. O'Neill said his government will ensure to make PNG a conducive climate for investors.
We will work in a predictable manner, and that will also enable us to portray to the rest of the international business community that PNG is a destination for investment, and they can be able to come in and invest their funds.
The Prime Minister highlighted some of the government's key objectives in areas such as law and order, infrastructure, health and education. Having just returned from an important visit to the autonomous region of Bougainville, O'Neill said businesses should consider moving out of Port Moresby and consider reaching out to places such as Bougainville, as there are vast opportunities.
There is a lot of opportunities in this country, and I think businesses need to expand outside Port Moresby. Must see that this is a big country with a lot of opportunities, and your investment dollar, kina, that you invest in many parts of the country will change lives of people, but also give you better returns.
President of the PNG Business Council, David Toa, highlighted the importance of support from the private sector in enabling Papua New Guineans to participate in business and contribute to the country's economy.
The desire for more Papua New Guineans to participate in our economy is a noble vision, and one which the private sector supports. And we do welcome the opportunity to be involved in the dialogue, the sensible dialogue which is required, and certainly those factors are an agenda item which we at the National Working Group will take an active and close interest in pursuing in 2014.
The new National Working Group has the goal of promoting an inclusive and competitive PNG private sector through trust building, public-private dialogue, advocacy for economic reform, and market-oriented activities. The group has 5 main objectives. The first is to build the National Working Group and National Working Group Secretariat as a sustainable and recognized organization which effectively voices PNG private sector concerns. The second is to become an influential partner in a public-private dialogue process aimed at accelerating growth. The third is to contribute to tangible economic reforms leading to quantifiable impact for the PNG economy. The fourth objective is to promote inclusion of women and the disenfranchised in economic development. The fifth objective is to provide capacity-building activities for PNG private businesses and associations. Mr. Toa pointed out that trade and investment negotiations are critical, and the private sector stands ready to provide assistance accordingly.
The private sector has also indicated strong desire to export goods and services both regionally and globally. The need to partake in trade and investment negotiations is critical, and we stand ready to work with Minister Maru and his officials in fostering this important pathway.
Toa also urged that the opportunities of growth in business should benefit Papua New Guineans.
The private sector is mindful that opportunities of growth must collectively benefit our people. Our young men and women need knowledge, jobs and purpose. Our mothers and sisters require protection and the opportunity to fulfil their dreams. Therefore, our education, health and law and order systems are not just a role for the government to undertake, but one which the private sector needs to be involved in as well.
With the record 15 billion kina budget for 2014 handed down in November last year, the government is embarking on improving Papua New Guinea's social and economic status. The government aims to achieve this through the improvement of critical infrastructure such as ports, roads, power and telecommunications. It is also undertaking reforms in taxation and commercial policy, as in the Kumul framework for the mining, petroleum, gas and state-owned enterprises.
The participation and the contribution of the private sector, commerce and business, is priority that this government continues to place, and this is very clearly reflected in our budgets that we have so far introduced to the country. The allocations that we have set out in 2013 budget and 2014 budget clearly articulates our desire to continue to promote business in our country.
The launching event was attended by business executives and senior government officials. During question time after the Prime Minister's keynote speech, some questions were raised regarding certain decisions made by government recently. Prime Minister Peter O'Neill responded quite confidently. One of them was regarding the Kumul Trust Fund.
The main thing about the Kumul structure is trying to redefine what we are doing at the IPBC. When IPBC was created, it was created to try and make business easier for state-owned enterprises. Unfortunately, that has not worked. It has become another bureaucratic red tape. What happens, I'll give you an example. If one of the state-owned enterprises board decides on an investment decision above 1 million kina, for instance, if Air Niugini wants to buy an engine which probably costs 2 or 3 million US dollars, they must go to the board of IPBC every time they want to make that decision. So, of course, the board doesn't meet every day.
The other was in relation to PNG Australia visa agreements.
The issue has been that our citizens have been complaining, where you've been asked to provide bank statements when you apply for a visa. You've been asked to stand in lines. All sorts of. Once you get a visa, when you go down to the immigration in Australia, you've been asked to queue up. They said, mistreated in many a time. So I had to take a decision that our people wanted us to take. And that is that we will give them the same treatment that we get when our citizens go down. So I know that this is going to be a little bit uncomfortable for a few people. But on principle, it is going to be difficult for PNG, but on principle, we had no choice but to make that decision.
The National Working Group is faced with enormous challenges in supporting government and the people of Papua New Guinea in various areas of society.
You're watching Business PNG. Don't forget to like our Facebook page. After the break, PNG's preparations to host the 2015 Pacific Games. Stay with us. As the countdown continues towards the hosting of the 2015 Pacific Games by Papua New Guinea, more business activity is emerging through the preparation of sporting venues in Port Moresby, where the Games will be held. The government is making a $1 billion kina investment to host the Games, in which most of the infrastructure that are to be built will continue to be used for events after the 2015 Pacific Games. The Lloyd Robson Oval will be reconstructed into a national sports stadium to host matches for national and international events, such as the upcoming 2015 Games. It was fully demolished last week, officiated by Prime Minister Peter O'Neill, other senior members of Parliament and business executives.
The demolishment of the Lloyd Robson Oval in Port Moresby last week signaled a new phase in construction and preparation towards next year's Games. The Pacific Games, formerly known as South Pacific Games, was first hosted in 1963 and is held every 4 years. Since then, many other countries in the South Pacific have hosted or participated in the Games. Come July next year, it will be Papua New Guinea's turn to host the event for the second time. Preparations now seem to be on track despite some hiccups in the early stages.
Most games around the world, be it Commonwealth Games, Olympics and stuff, there's always this stigma that we're running late. But I think there's a lot of work being done in the background. So whilst I think we are, there's no doubts about it, we are behind schedule. But magically somehow, things fall into place. And we are quite confident as the organizing committee or from the telecommunications side, our guys are laying fiber out into different venues and things. So I think it will all come together. We've still got about 15 months to plan. I mean, it's very little time, and it's going to be very touch and go.
The government has been allocating funding towards the Games preparations. In the 2014 budget handed down last November, the government allocated 386 million kina for investment in the 2015 Pacific Games. Treasury Minister Don Pollier stated that this is from the 2013 supplementary budget, which contains a number of saving measures realized from project underspends. Minister Pollier said it is of regional significance that these sporting facilities meet world standards and are completed on time by March 2015 to cater for more than 3,000 visiting athletes from 22 Pacific nations who will participate in 28 different sports. Sports Minister Justin Kichenko told Business PNG last week that the government is investing a total funding of 1.1 billion kina in preparing for the Games.
The national government, under the leadership of our Prime Minister Peter O'Neill, are investing 1.1 billion kina in ensuring that all the infrastructure and development is ready for the Pacific Games and leaving a lasting legacy for us to have some of the best international infrastructure in sporting facilities that this country and the nation and also the Pacific has ever seen.
CEO for the 2015 Pacific Games Organizing Committee, Peter Stewart, who has been involved in organizing a number of Olympic and Commonwealth Games, stated in an interview recently that the government is showing a lot of support and things are on track.
And they are nearly 800 million kinas worth of infrastructure work that is going to leave a long-lasting legacy for Papua New Guinea. And that's being managed through the normal process that government runs. The Pacific Games Authority under Costas Constantino is managing those projects, and they will leave sporting facilities that are state-of-the-art for the people of Papua New Guinea after the Games are finished. And so the normal contracts associated with that type of construction are going ahead, and there will be opportunities for the types of industries and the types of businesses who work on those quite large projects.
Hosting international sporting events involves a lot of business activity. The 2015 Pacific Games preparations in PNG have already attracted a lot of businesses, both locally and internationally, who will be involved in the construction and upgrade of venues. Target dates have been set for projects, and specialists have been hired to come in and be involved in the preparatory work.
Look, for business-wise, the 1.1 billion kina that we're putting into the system, into infrastructure work, will benefit thousands of Papua New Guineans in the construction field, and massive companies as well, and small companies and service providers will all benefit from the construction phases of these particular facilities. But then afterwards, there's the service providers that will then be able to be part of the revenue generation of these particular facilities that we are building.
During the Games themselves, we will have a number of businesses that will have opportunities as well. The Games themselves for the 2 weeks will cost about 100 million kina to run, and some of the very important areas that we will be doing include catering, cleaning and waste, logistics, broadcast, all of those areas. So for example, we're going to deliver around 20,000 meals a day. So that's a heck of a lot of food, of catering facilities, of people working, bussing tables and looking after those sorts of food preparation areas that local companies, we are hoping, are going to be picking up that work.
But our aim from the board level, and it's driven by our chairperson, Emma YY, that we want to prioritize all businesses to Papua New Guinean based companies. So you look at employment creation for the catering. When we have our Games Village, we will be, there'll be about 4,000 or 5,000 athletes housed there. So from feeding the athletes, cleaning the premises, logistics, transportation.
One of the companies that have been awarded contracts in constructing the Games infrastructure is Ferrum Engineering, a company that caters for the design and fabrication of steelworks.
Now, it is indeed an honour to have been awarded this contract. The contract value is approximately $14 million. As part of our scope of work, we have been engaged to fabricate and erect the trusses associated with the aquatic center.
The company's workshop contains some of the latest technical equipment and is located in a hidden corner of 6 Mile in Port Moresby. Mr. Sweet says most of the equipment needed for the project awarded to the company are already available, and the work at the Taurama Aquatic Center should be completed this year.
Our work is estimated to be completed by June, July of this year. Once the trusses are up, then the head contractor will be able to come in and finalize on the rest of the building.
Don't go away. More on the 2015 Pacific Games when we come back. Welcome back. You're watching Business PNG. A lot of business and employment opportunities are expected to be available when the 2015 Pacific Games are held in PNG. Visitor numbers are also expected to rise at the time. There are predictions that there will be spikes in certain sectors of the PNG economy when the Games are actually held, particularly in the services sector. With a lot of construction activity already underway in the preparation of venues for the Games, the construction sector is certainly on the rise, with more expected to come in the next 18 months.
The old Lloyd Robson Oval in Port Moresby was fully demolished last week, with the venue to be turned into a national sports stadium to cater for some sports in the 2015 Pacific Games, as well as become the home of rugby league in PNG. The project is funded through a trust credit scheme through Oil Search.
Today marks, as I say, the transition from the old Lloyd Robson into the National Football Stadium. Today marks, as I say, the transition from the old Lloyd Robson into the National Football Stadium. That over the next 18 months or so will...
Prime Minister Peter O'Neill officiated at the ceremony, thanking Oil Search for its support and promising Papua New Guineans that the government is committed to developing such infrastructure into the future.
It's very important that we are now spending hundreds of millions of kina in building this infrastructure. We have had to spend the same amount of money when we hosted the South Pacific Games before, but we have allowed many of this infrastructure to degenerate into the state which we have today. We must never allow that to happen. It's very important that we are now spending hundreds of millions of kina in building this infrastructure. We have had to spend the same amount of money when we hosted.
The venue is expected to initially have a capacity of about 12,000 and then further develop into having a capacity of almost 30,000 when it completes its second phase. National and international sporting events are to be held at the venue, which will also have health and fitness facilities. Other major venues being worked on for the 2015 Pacific Games include the Sejongai Stadium, Sir Hubert Murray Stadium, University of Papua New Guinea as the Games Village, and the Rita Flynn Courts.
So every sport will benefit from the Pacific Games, and we want to make sure the money we put in is a lasting legacy that rolls on for the next 20, 30, 40 years and is maintained and looked after all these facilities. We don't want to see these facilities run down. Maintenance is very, very important. So a new legacy board will be put in place, which will have a professional management, which will be part of the PNG Sports Foundation, and they will maintain and run the management and administration of these new facilities.
More business activity is expected when the actual games are hosted. Spikes are expected to come from various sectors of the economy, particularly from the services sector.
Look, the economy will grow definitely in the service providers, in the hoteliers, and in the restaurants and the food providers, in security, in many different aspects. You'll see spikes going in businesses while we have the games on here for a month in July 4th, 2015. But even the lead up to the Pacific Games, you'll have many businesses doing well in many different areas. But it's not only for the games, after the games as well.
And I remember back in 1991, I was still involved with the games. And that was billed as the best games ever. This one is going to be bigger and better. But you had people from Tonga and Samoa and stuff, and they were out in the shops shopping, you know, buying food, buying gifts to take back. So another industry that I think people should start planning is art and crafts and bilums and things where village folks can actually start planning to sort of say, how do we bring it to market?
Hosting the games is expected to generate revenue for PNG, thus contribute to PNG's economic growth. The government, as well as the Games Organizing Committee, hope to host the best games ever and create a lasting legacy.
There's two factors to growth associated with the games. The first is the spike that the games themselves gives to industry. The very large building projects and construction projects that are going on provide work and opportunities for businesses. When the games are actually on, again, a small spike in industry for employment across a broad range of different sectors. But the real benefit of the games like this is the ongoing legacy. So what we want these games to do is to tell the rest of the world that Papua New Guinea is open for business, and we can do a lot more than just dig things out of the ground.
As a developing country with vast natural resources and a unique multicultural society, PNG will have great potential to host major events such as the 2015 Pacific Games coming up next year in a unique fashion when the appropriate infrastructure is put in place.
These facilities are there to make money and to provide services, and we need as much help as possible from a small businessman to the big businessman, because we're planning in the future to bid for the Commonwealth Games. Now, Commonwealth Games is a massive thing. If Jamaica can do it, we're part of the Commonwealth, we can do it, because we'll have all the international facilities here as good as anywhere in the world where we can host the Commonwealth Games.
Apart from games venues infrastructure, other necessities for visitors need to be catered for, such as water, electricity and road network. Prime Minister Peter O'Neill updated a private sector meeting last week of the government's commitments for infrastructure in the country, emphasizing on road projects in Port Moresby.
Many of the projects that we also have in Port Moresby, of course, the 9 mile to the airport road, which is fully funded by PNG government. The crossover now, which has been done by Hawkins Constructions out of New Zealand, from Erima to St. John Guy's Drive, which is now under started construction. Of course, the Ella Beach Ring Road, which has been funded fully by government, done by Curtin Brothers. All the other smaller jobs, Airport Linkway by Hebo Construction, and all these projects will see a good road network system in Port Moresby City. Recently, we also signed an agreement with the Exim Bank of China to do the Bek Baruni to Garu Road.
As the clock winds down and as athletes and other people who will be involved in the games prepare themselves, there is already plenty happening on the business front. This is expected to continue on until the games are over and done with the government looking to strengthen economic growth and strongly encourage small and medium enterprises for the country. Hosting of the 2015 Pacific Games is now seen as a wonderful opportunity for these.
And that's all we have for you tonight. Make sure to visit our webpage using the address now shown on your screen. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. Until next week, have a pleasant evening. I'm Leanne Jarari and this is Business PNG.